Alrighty. Well, if I'm being honest, I have no idea how to start this video. My name is Drew. Most of you that will probably watch this for the foreseeable future probably already know me. But I am starting just this little side business called Bear River Greenery. I love growing things in this cool little, gardening area that I have back here. I built this greenhouse, and I think largely I just kind of hope to be able to do some of this even to just catalog this for myself, and maybe some other people will enjoy it along the way. So you'll have to pardon my yard. I mean, we are very early spring at this point. What is today? Yeah, it looks like March 30th. So very early in the process still. So I figured I'd kind of give you a quick peek of some of the stuff that I am doing. And yeah, kind of show you from there. See, this is my little greenhouse. I built this last year, but I built it late enough in the year that I really wasn't able to use it as much as I wanted to. So Rachel and I are really looking forward to being able to use this how it's supposed to be used this year. This is kind of a little seed starting, area, just a little workspace. I actually just bought a new hinge for this. That's pretty cool. It's actually supposed to open and close with the hotter weather to try and do some temperature regulation. Then, of course, a fan. This is my compost tumbler. Again, relatively new to this as well, but this is what I pretty much put all my kitchen scraps and stuff like that into over the winter. This is kind of what I do a little bit of no rules composting in, because I put meats and cheeses and just stuff like that, things that most of the time you wouldn't compost, but I'll put those in here because rodents can't really get to it, which is the only real strong case I've seen for not doing some of that stuff. So we just put some of this back in here today, but it's actually coming along pretty good. It rarely heats up per se when we're talking about like a hot composting system there, but at the same time it is in this nice warm area, and it's black itself, so it actually heats up. But my daughter and I already came and put the kitchen scraps in there and gave it a tumble today, so not much more we need to do there. Need to pick up that basketball hoop. Even got a little burn barrel over here. But yeah, here's the garden area. I have this awesome windmill. Really just love that. My grandma actually used to have one of those, and I just always loved watching it. Then my mom had one. So it really just kind of feels like carrying on the gardening tradition to some degree here. But here's the actual gardening space. I set up these compost bins a couple years ago. I've got these raised beds that I actually inherited essentially the wood to build them with from my in-laws. And we set them up here. We've really kind of pieced a lot of this together. We've got this bench over here that's just so nice. This tree gives us some good shade, but this is where the magic happens, as they say. So this is where, this area is where we tend to kind of grow some, peas, and you can actually see we grew like some melons here, and those were kind of the leftover supports from the melons. My kids were out here with me earlier, so we had this little setup for them. Yeah, really just this nice area. Part of what I did is last year I had already mulched all of this with some straw, but last year, to really just increase the organic activity and to put some of what I had to good use, I mulched this all with these dead leaves that you can see here. The cool thing with that, if we really get kind of under here, you can start to see that it's really just pretty good looking, healthy soil. I'm actually going to send in a sample of this to Utah State to do a soil test to see how we're doing. I did one of those last year, and basically said not a ton of organic matter, needed nitrogen. So last year we really reworked this area, added some compost, and have just done a ton of things since. We really started learning about and using natural fertilizers, like organic fertilizers, like your fish emulsions and stuff like that, things that are not just supposed to help feed your plants but also feed the soil, which I'm really excited to see how that's going to pan out this year. These raised beds, to some degree, are a little bit of my pride and joy. They're where I tend to grow my pepper plants, and that's kind of my favorite. I like growing, for sure, anything that you need to grow a salsa. That's kind of my mentality with it. I love being able to come out here and get stuff and just, make a salsa without even having to go to a store. But peppers, there's so much variety to them. They're so much fun. They're colorful. I'm an absolute huge fan. of the veggie themselves, but also just growing them. I grow way more than I could ever eat or anything like that. Like I said, same thing with the soil here. We covered these before the season ended. You can see kind of the leftover straw from last year, but then also the leaves that I put on there. When we actually get down here, that is just, some really good looking soil that I think is just really going to make the plants do well this year. We'll get those planted, a little bit later. As far as these compost bays go, I'm probably going to add a third one before too long, because right now I'm just kind of switching between the two. But you can see this compost pile that I've essentially been working on for probably 3 years at this point. Maybe my biggest downfall with something like this is I tend to not do a good enough job at keeping it wet. But, it's supposed to be kind of that consistency of a damp sponge. But yeah, that's, again, an ever work in progress. The cool thing with composting is you really can't mess it up. That stuff will eventually turn into that black gold that we love. So yeah. And yeah, I actually had came out here because I had bottom watered these today. And so instead of just pouring that water down the drain, I actually came out here and put it onto that compost bin that we were just talking about. For multiple reasons. I mean, one, yeah, water, moisture, all that good stuff. But that bottom watering I did today, I had actually mixed with some Vermistera worm tea to really just add just kind of those organic nutrients. I mean, nutrients, I guess, didn't need to clarify organic there, I suppose. But yeah, just add those kind of from the bottom up. I actually even have a little bit of worm castings on the top of these that I've kind of scratched throughout. Really just light fertilizer here, because of course when plants are in this stage they don't really need too much. So as far as how these little guys are doing though, started these about a month ago. You can see back here I've got my ghost peppers. Right over here is some puma peppers. So I'm told that those are going to be roughly the same heat as like a habanero, but really just a cool looking plant. You can even see from there, it's got some cool color to it. Which one do I have over here? Let's see. Some of these are going to be turned around a little bit. Oh, those are just my jalapenos. Easy enough. And then over here, we're going to have some of my Big Jim Anaheims over here. And then what's called a Sugar Rush, which is just a really popular variety these days. These are actually 2 more Anaheims. And then this is a really beautiful variety I grow largely just for the coloring. It's called a Jigsaw. I'm literally going to put these in like whiskey barrels and stuff in front of my house, and probably never really eat them. They're about the same heat as like a jalapeno, but largely just grow them for the color. The peppers are all sorts of purples and reds and oranges and all that, so they're really fun to watch grow. And then these are actually my habaneros right here. So over here you can see the tomato plant variety that I'm going to focus on this year, called the Homestead tomato. And then over here, these are actually what's called an orange hat tomato. When these are fully grown, they're supposed to get to about 6 to 9 inches tall and actually still produce really well. So I'm really excited to see those. Those are going to, they'd be great for gifting or anything like that. And then these heirlooms, I'm excited about these as well. You typically have 2 different types of tomatoes. Your determinate and then your indeterminate. Determinate just meaning that it has a set height and it's going to get to that height and then stop growing. Kind of a predetermined lifespan per se, whereas your indeterminate will just grow and grow and grow. I mean, we've grown these that, I've grown them over here along this fence line. If they would have been supported properly, they would have gone above the fence. I mean, we're talking 6, feet tall if they were, properly supported and trellised, which has absolutely been my struggle in past years, but I'm determined to have that not be the case this year. So I'm still going to try one of those tomatoes I've grown previously. That variety is called an early girl, and I'm still going to try one of those and really just focus on pruning it well and supporting it properly. But these semi-determinants are really exciting to me because they come with basically the perks of both. I mean, at full age, they're supposed to get around, 4 feet tall or so, maybe a little bit more. But they keep growing and producing, of course. But then obviously they're just, that little bit smaller size. So hopefully a little bit more manageable and supposedly still really disease tolerant and really tasty. So, and then of course those other little ones, I mean, they're just going to be so cool. I've got these visions of just these really small, foot tall, not even that actually. I mean, foot tall with the pot, tomato plants that are just going to grow these little cute cherry tomatoes. So But yeah, I mean, as far as some of the plans for this year, we're going to put some peas down here shortly, maybe even today, depending on if I have enough sunlight for it. We'll end up getting some onions over here. We're going to do more melons this year. The variety of corn I'm going to grow this year, I'm actually going to grow to purposefully use for popcorn. So we've grown that here previously, but you know, I still haven't quite determined where we're going to put everything. And then I can't remember if I said onions, but I am going to grow onions. So we'll get those in the ground. I actually planted these last year. This is garlic, and garlic, you do that. They need a cold stratification period. So I actually planted all of these before winter ever hit. So these have been hibernating and they're just barely starting to pop up. So with this one, you know, I found at least gardening for me is largely a measure of using what you had. And what I had to use for mulch was actually just some shredded cardboard, but that'll work just fine for that. Provided some nice insulation, and that'll break down, just a carbon. So but yeah, you can see that I've got these starting to pop up here, and really excited to see kind of, you know, what growing garlic's like. That's, you know, this is my first time growing those. So all right, I am absolutely new to this. I ran into some technical difficulties at the tail end of the video there, but I was just signing off anyway, so that works. But yeah, finger absolutely definitely touch the record button, so it stopped recording. So, but anyway, again, I'm excited. I'm nervous. I don't even know that I'm largely doing this so that I can go back and kind of look at something. But if there's somebody else that wants to watch and enjoy along the way, awesome. I'm here for it. I'm glad you're here for it. So, but this is my space. You can see what it looks like now, and it's going to be a lot of fun seeing what this is going to look like a little later in the season. So, again, my name is Drew. If you don't know that already, I'm with the Bear River Greenery, and excited to be here. So, talk to you later.